Welcome to a Fresh Story podcast. This season, we're digging into all things divorce. We'll be discussing the ins, the outs, the nitty-gritty, all that stuff we don't talk about. Well, we're going to talk about it. Join us for everything you've always wanted to know about divorce, but were afraid to ask. Remember, you're not alone. Let's dive into divorce together. Nicole is the founder and managing principal of Sodoma Law, a marriage-loving divorce attorney and author of Please Don't Say You're Sorry, which we love. In this witty and honest and wildly relatable account of the stripped-down realities of marriage, separation, and divorce, Nicole uses her personal stories and sometimes unbelievable experiences as a family law attorney of 25 years to layer in laughter, compassion, and legal savvy to deliver empowering principles that will help guide readers through both the humorous and not-so-humorous realities of marriage and divorce. Quickly rising as a national authority on divorce and family law, Nicole's insights have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, USA Today, Washington Post. The list goes on and on. And we are so excited to have Nicole here today. I read Nicole's book back when it was first out a couple of years ago, and I was actually just a couple of years out of my divorce at that point. And, you know, we talk so much about divorce and divorce lawyers, and I feel like there's such I don't know, like we have this like idea of what a divorce lawyer is. And I went through a lot of divorce lawyers during my divorce, and it's a very personal relationship that you build with somebody. So we're super excited to have you here today, Nicole, and chat with you.
Yes, lawyers are definitely not a one size fits all. Like
No.
finding the right lawyer and the person that's going to be your voice can be so hard. And just because you think you heard something about a lawyer doesn't necessarily mean that's the right lawyer for you. Yes, that is, I practice with, I think there are 28 of us.
Wow.
In the practice. We have a bunch of different locations, but I think there are 28 lawyers, and clients will call and they think they want to have me. And I'm like, let me tell you who you really want.
Right. Yeah.
There's this other lawyer in this practice that you like, just hypothetically. It's been, I love practicing with a bunch of different humans who have different styles and personalities and voices. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and you have to, I would assume, because you would have to know everybody right at the practice so you could like match people really well. But that's a skill, right? That takes some time to figure that out. So you have to be really good with people in that way.
You definitely have to know your audience. And the assumption is always like, oh, you're a divorce attorney, so you like all facets of a divorce. And that's just not true. Like, because in the world of family law or divorce or domestic, wherever you are, everybody calls it something different. We're typically dealing with custody, child support, alimony, and the division of assets. And understanding math and understanding what's right for your kids might be two totally different things. And not everybody loves both of them. And so, knowing in the practice who loves what, and oh my gosh, it also could be like who likes going to what county. That is even a thing. So
that's interesting. That's interesting.
And not everybody, even if you're a litigator, not everybody loves being in the courtroom to resolve things. So, I was a litigator, and when I moved to Seattle, Washington in 2006 for a year and a half, and I went thinking, I don't want to be a litigator anymore. I wanted to resolve matters outside of the courtroom. And I felt like the lawyers in Seattle looked at me like I was crazy.
Interesting.
Like, what are you talking about? We have to end up in court. It's all a very interesting, it's not like it is on TV.
No, it's not.
No, we were just talking to a friend of ours who is getting divorced, and she sent the contract with her lawyer over. And, we come from a divorced family. Olivia was divorced. Like, we've seen a lot of divorce. And I think there was some clause in there that said, like, basically this contract will not have you be like, shown up. We won't show up in court for this contract. And she was like, well, what does this mean? And I said, well, most divorces don't go to court. So they're not going to give you a litigator, right, to go to court with you when you're just trying to settle out of court. Like, and it's all these things that they're so big and it's so scary. And it's like the scariest time of your life when you're going through a divorce, as I've observed, and you have no idea what's going on. So you really need a lawyer. If you're an anxious person, you need a lawyer that's going to carry you through that.
Yeah, I remember I was going to say, I remember I ended up with a wonderful woman lawyer, and she understood my anxieties and how to like tamper them down, but she also trusted me. There were some things that I was like, let's try this, you know, and she knew it maybe wasn't the right decision, like from her end. And I remember a couple times calling her and say, were they mad about that? She was like, oh, they were mad about that, you know, but like, it's fine. So anyway, Nicole, we're thrilled to have you here and hear your story today.
We really are. How are you doing today?
Oh my, you guys, it has been such a crazy week. We went to Annapolis, the Annapolis Book Festival over the weekend, the 20th annual Annapolis Book Festival. And I was so inspired that, I mean, it was really, I'm still coming off of that high and, you know, have so many questions about all the things I learned. And I took all these notes and I got to meet, some authors and, oh my gosh, some, you know, really, thought leaders. I was so impressed. So I'm coming off that a little bit. I texted one of them this morning that I wasn't ready to come back to Charlotte to, you know, start adulting again. But you know, here I am. I'm in the office today, and I'm ready for another fresh start. You know, I grew up with my mom used to say, and it's in the book, today is the first day of the rest of your life. And I'm like, oh my God, how many lives do I get? So when I found out that I was going to be on your podcast, I have been like searching, like doing some real soul searching on what I would define as my fresh start. So I'm really excited to talk about it, actually.
We can't wait. Well, let's hope you've decided, because why don't you take us back to the beginning of your fresh start story? I can't wait to hear.
So, you know, when I hear the word fresh start, and I've asked around to other people's fresh start. In fact, this morning, speaking of my mother, on the way here, I asked her what she thought her fresh start was. Because I'm at that point, well, I'm at this point a long time ago where, you know, you see your mom as not just a mom, but a human. I remember some of those moments and growing up, but like, what I've noticed that whenever you talk about a fresh start, a lot of times people associate it with a relationship. Do you hear that?
You know, we started the podcast because I think that's what people thought we were doing as a company. And we wanted people to understand that it's so much more than that. And the podcast, we're not seeing that a lot, which is amazing. We're seeing so many different things, but that is exactly why we started it. Because so many people would be like, well, I haven't been divorced. Can I come and use your platform? We'd be like, yeah, we're for everything. So
I was standing on the top of a mountain in Park City. And, you know, I'm not a great skier. I hadn't been on a real girls trip in as long as I could remember. It was the end of 2018 to the beginning of 2019. I actually can't remember the date of the trip. But I remember being on the top of the mountain. I'm all dressed in my ski gear. And I remember the air, the way it hit me. I remember looking out, but like almost seeing nothing, you know, like there was this sense of freedom. But gosh, you know, I thought about, was that my fresh start? Because I think so much happened after that moment. I'm not exactly sure if that was my fresh start. My other fresh start moment, the two that made me think immediately was when in the book, there's a story of it was, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Look at me stuttering, y'all. I'm even interested to talk about my fresh start.
That's why we don't do video.
And I knew obviously you're going to ask me, and I was already with this beautiful, eloquent answer. And of course, the bravest thing I did, I think, in my marriage, was when I knew the responsibility was on me to make a decision for me. I had planned a surprise trip for my then husband for his 50th birthday. And I ended up going without him. And there's a picture of me on the boat, and I'm in the corner of the boat, and there's nothing but salt water in front of me. And that moment too is one of those moments where I still say now, I can describe it now better, but there's a moment in Glennon Doyle's book where she says that she felt held and free at the same time, held and free. And there was I'm a mom. Who am I? I'm a mom. I'm a lawyer. I'm an ex-wife. I'm a wife. I'm a business owner. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I wear all these hats all the time. And when you're at the top of a mountain or you're out in the middle of the ocean, that idea of being held and free is what feels like a fresh start every time. And having that compassion for yourself and leaving behind, not permanently, but just in the moment, the responsibilities and the obligations you have to everyone else, all the things that you've signed up for voluntarily or because you did it out of guilt. Like, those moments are my fresh starts. And I struggle with attaching it to a relationship or the start of a job, or, when I got married the first time, or when I decided on Charlotte, North Carolina being where I wanted to start my career. I mean, there are all these things, all these factors and feelings that go into it. And so I think I've had a lot of fresh starts. I think those feelings, that those moments where you feel held and free and have compassion for yourself, and can breathe. Like, I remember somebody asking me about, like, when do you feel the most free? Like, do y'all have an answer to that? Like, when do you feel the most free?
Ooh, that's like a big question, right?
Right? It is such a big question. And so hard. I mean, you guys are running a podcast and doing all these amazing things, and you have these listeners who are counting on you and trusting you. Like, when do you feel the most free? Is it when you're sharing your stories, listening to stories, making change? There's just, I don't know, I'm enamored and fascinated. When do you feel the most free? And is that the fresh start that you give yourself? Because, like, one of the things I was thinking was, it's the same day, the day changed on the calendar, but it's the same day, but are you looking at it through the same lens?
Right.
If not, why?
These are very deep, amazing questions. I love these. I mean, is this the next book? Are you working on the next book? I love this. I think for me so much, and I so understand what you mean by this, like, feeling of being free and held. I felt like that too in the night before kind of my marriage exploded. I always describe it kind of as like an energy that came through me, and it was like almost like my grandmother's presence, right, coming from like above. That was like, I felt almost like a whoosh, right, like somebody was pushing me on this journey, but I also felt held, right. I think for me, so much of it is in the stillness, right? It's in the quiet moments that magic happens, that you can make those brave decisions. But that's where a lot of people get scared, right? Is in those quiet moments. I remember when I was going through my divorce, working with a coach, and she said, Olivia, I want you just to have 1 minute of quiet a day. And I was like, I can't do that.
I hate
1 minute of quiet? I can't do
that.
that. And it was so
I'm
scary.
the one who leaves at Savasana at the end of a yoga class. I'm the one who leaves before you have to get to that quiet.
Exactly.
That's so funny. You're like,
So,
that's gonna be good for me.
Nicole, so take us
I'm
back.
out.
I'm really fascinated by your story because you are a divorce lawyer who went through a divorce. So take us back kind of to the beginning. When did you first get married? Were you young?
So I too, and I think I heard you say this. I grew up I always call it like my super divorced family.
Yeah.
Yep.
My parents were super divorced. They're
Yep.
still very divorced. It's been like 40 years or something. God, it has, I think it has been that long. That makes me old. But
Yeah.
that didn't make me unique. Like, in fact, they were married for 10 years, the first 10 years of my life, and they had blended their families and had me, and they made it seem so normal. And so when I got married, I kind of fast tracked everything. So I mean, I graduated high school when I was 16. I skipped my senior year. I had big plans for what my professional life was going to look like, and I was 30 and not married, and there's all this pressure around, like, when are you going to get? I didn't even know I didn't even know if kids were in my future. I wasn't sure. I didn't have these dreams of white picket fence and all those things. I didn't know any of that story. I hadn't figured that out yet. I got married when I think I was 31 officially. And actually, I was living in Charlotte at the time, and he and I met, and 3 months into our dating relationship, he sent me, I think I put this in the book, he sent me an email, and he was working a bank job. Banking is big in Charlotte, and he had an opportunity to move to Seattle, Washington with his job, and he sent me an email. And I think it was November 3rd, because I ended up getting married on November 3rd. But he sent me an email and asked me if I wanted to move to Seattle. And I had really just gotten warmed up in my seat as a lawyer, even though it was like 5 or 6 years into practicing. And I quit my job and moved cross country, like as if it was not a big deal. There was a lawyer in the courtroom I was against over some period of time, and she said something like, hope hope trumps experience. Like, I'm still a marriage loving divorce attorney, but I had such hopes of finding the right person. And I really, I have no regrets about the person I married. I have 3 awesome boys. Also, I have 2 dogs, 3. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I have 3 dogs. Now,
more important than the boys, the dogs, 100%.
Biggie. I have a dog named Biggie Smalls. She's
love that.
You're like a 90s rap fan.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought it was like such a love story.
Yeah.
So we moved to Seattle. While we were out there, got engaged. So many crazy things happened, but we ended up moving back to Charlotte. I was over the let's see, so we got married in 2006. I think I was 32 when I got pregnant for the first time. I was told I could never have children. Ended up having 3, with lots and lots of help of amazing, smart, talented doctors, and a lot of courage. And we separated in the first quarter of 2019.
Okay.
That's a long marriage.
Yeah. Well, so Forbes just put out this article. Well, I guess, isn't that funny? What's a long marriage to us now?
Yeah.
Like 2 generations ago, a long marriage is, you're married. But Forbes just put out these statistics from 2022, and I thought interesting. Some of the statistics were that if you married in your early 30s, that your success rate was lower. And I thought that was it. Marrying in your early 20s had a better success rate than marrying in your early 30s. And I have noticed after 23 years or whatever it is of practicing among all these lawyers too in the law firm is 11 to 13 years is kind of a sweet spot. I don't know who came up with the 7-year itch. I didn't have a 7-year itch, but that 11 to 13. And in fact, like if you Google like celebrities, look at how long they've been married. 11 to 13 is a real thing. That's not like
our parents were 13.
13, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe it has to do with life events. It has, at my book festival over the weekend, one of the listeners, one of the ladies in the audience, she said, did it have to do with, she wanted to know if it had to do with when you hit menopause, when you start like, was it when you're, I think that's what she said. I said a lot of things happened to me when I turned 40.
Yeah.
But is it when your children are a certain age? Is it, you know, there's things that happen to women when they turn 40? Was it like this midlife? What is this midlife crisis thing? Anyway.
So so
so
what's that like?
yeah.
So go ahead,
I was just gonna say, I'm so curious how like long-term relationships that end in marriage, so if it composites, right? Like if it's like, because I was with somebody for just over 10 years and then we broke up, and like how does that like what, you know, if we had been together for 3 years and then married for 7, like I'm always curious about that because of the way that we look at, you know, people are living together before marriage so much more now than they were 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
And in the same article, I need to look and see where they got their stats from, but or where their data was pulled from. But that same article says that you have a higher risk of divorce if you live together before you got married. I thought that was really interesting.
But and so when I hear something like that, though, I think about the concept of a successful marriage, right? Because a successful marriage is just not getting divorced, right? That's what they're considering a successful marriage. Right. And so so is it that people that don't live together tend to come from more religious backgrounds and then they're less likely to get divorced? Hey. Like I have a lot of questions.
I have a lot of questions too.
This is how we found ourselves where we are.
Okay, so most of the time people will just say like, what are the biggest reasons people get divorced? The big ones, lack of commitment, adultery, the obvious, right? Financial disagreements. But you know, I always think like, so many of those things exist. The question is what's the final straw?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that one of the things that I would have done differently, I should say, I should have done differently, but nobody likes to be shit on, right? So
no, we say that all the time.
No, nobody likes to be shit on. So I'm going to say what I would have done differently. I don't have any idea if it would have changed the outcome because it takes 2 of us to want to make change. And you can't force somebody to be somebody they're not, or to want to go to therapy or to like, that's up to them. That's work they have to do the same way you have to do your work. But I was not a great communicator because I think I spend all day advocating for other people. And so by the time I get home, I don't want to advocate for myself.
Yeah.
Like it's just easier to nod and accept than it is to advocate for yourself. And I'm still I'm still not great at advocating for myself. I still have a hard time identifying emotions and knowing what I'm feeling. And oh my gosh, I'm being so vulnerable. Jiminy Christmas.
No, I love that, but I love that you're saying that because I think that there is like this stigma around divorce lawyers that they're like these hardened people, right?
Sharks, right? Sharks,
right?
It's always
like and that don't care about the, and they just want to get the money for their clients and all these things. And I love that you're saying that because you're a real human, right, with real vulnerabilities. And I think that probably makes you the amazing lawyer that you are, is because you can see the vulnerabilities in other people, right? Whereas like, So what's it like, Nicole?
I have to tell you this,
Yeah,
because this sounds so ridiculous, but talking about like advocating for yourself, I love advocating for other people, But I didn't even know these things about myself until I met my husband, who I married a year ago, you guys.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. We were dating, and we went to get a pizza, and he said, "What do you want on your pizza?" And of course I said, like, "I'm good with whatever. Like, whatever you get, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, don't worry about me." And he goes, "No, no." I said, "What do you want on your pizza?" And I said, "Seriously, like, I'm good with whatever." And he said, "Will you tell me what you like on your, if I wasn't here, what would you order?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I would order pepperoni and mushroom."
Mm.
Like, oh my God, was that so hard?
It is hard.
It is hard. And it's
Yes.
hard when you've learned, like you said, to advocate for everybody else, literally as your job. I mean, for me, it's decision making. I get to the end of the day and I'm like, I'm done making decisions.
Yes.
And for me, I'm engaged and moving in 23 days to go marry my guy. And I am like, it's to get to the end of the day and have him be like, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to pick out what's for dinner and I'm going to make it. And I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm done. I'm completely tapped, and so it's big. And then to have kids on top of it,
I was
and
gonna say that
you
to be
know,
a mom of I have two boys, and it's so much, right? Like they take so much of your energy. Right. So I can't even imagine to come home from working with clients all day like you do, and then to code switch into that mom mode. Of course, you don't have any words to verbalize what you need. I mean, that would be crazy, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, what was it like, kind of viewing divorce from the other side?
Totally changed my life. It changed the way I practice.
Yeah.
It changed the way, the most fascinating thing to me, I'm sitting in a conference room or a courtroom or somebody's office, on the phone, and I'm thinking to myself, there are all these things that my clients didn't tell me. And there are all these things that I wish I would have known, because I think I would have told them other things, but nothing impacted me like going through my own divorce and being able to apply the lessons
Yeah.
to the people that I help, the families we serve. Like, when I wrote the book, like that was part of the mission was, I think that I included, so like going out onto all my kids are, they like sports, and like being on a soccer field. I described this in the book in more detail, but like, uh, I'm on a soccer field or a football field. I mean, I can name the field. I've been on it, usually on it on a weekend and after school, just about every day, it feels like. But knowing that you're leaving without your kids,
Mm.
the loneliness, and but also learning how to cope. The thing that makes me the most frustrated about the taboo subject of divorce is that we don't talk about those moments, but the reality is, and I say this in the book, and I've said it in my practice for as long as I can remember, that it takes two to say I do, but one to say I don't. And I say it over and over again because we don't talk openly about what happens after people divorce. It's not necessarily going to feel like a fresh start, because the person who decided they didn't want to be married to you anymore is the same person, right? The
Yeah.
things that weren't working in your relationship aren't going to all of a sudden start working.
No.
And so the people, and also how much work goes into the marriage, like how much, like, and it's good work, but it's not just work on your relationship, but it's work on yourself, because you are going to evolve. The people we marry are not the people we divorce, right? How you evolve together, but also how you evolve independently, because it's so easy to create this dependence on each other for happiness and harmony and peace and success. And then, it's really also easy to forget who you are. And having that independence, maintaining the things that, or finding the things that bring you happiness outside of your marriage are so important.
Yeah.
And you have to evolve. You both have to evolve. And I think one of the things that we don't talk about is like, it's not, people say we grew apart. You could have grown together, but you also can grow apart and still love each other and have a beautiful marriage and relationship. But you have to be communicating along the way.
Yeah.
And I think that we really miss on that. In fact, I got to go back to that same article, and people in this Forbes article, they talked about, and I'm going to swear I'm going to pull the data on where they got this, but it was something like 70% of women don't think their partners give enough. And listen, the guys, it's about the same, but I just thought that was really interesting. And that kind of goes back to this idea of how we do our marriages and how we talk about divorce, because it's not like the easy way out.
No.
Despite like all the jokes.
No, we
sometimes it's easier just to stay. I mean, I talk a lot about my breakup, but like, it wasn't bad. The relationship itself wasn't bad. It was kind of exhausting because I did a lot of the emotional and, domestic labor, but it would have been easier to go through the wedding and, pop out a couple of kids with him and do that than blow up my whole life,
Well, and how brave of you to recognize that after being with the human for
I appreciate
so long,
that.
right?
I received that.
I'm
It
sure
was
you've heard that
hard.
before.
It was hard to do anything but leave when he told me he wasn't in love with me anymore, and I was like, well, I gotta go now. But to be honest with you, he was genuinely surprised I left after that. And I was like, what did you?
Because he wanted you to fight for him.
Yeah,
right?
Which
did he want you to fight for him?
I think he wanted me to accept what he was willing to give, and I also think that he didn't really consider what he was saying. I think that he didn't for one second think about what that meant. I think he just wanted me to stop bothering him about having children, is what I really think happened. But it's, a lot of the time we say like, people take the easy way out with divorce, but we all, like you're saying, we all know sometimes it would be so much easier to stay and sort of live in that sort of middle ground of happiness and not happiness, where it's like pursuing joy. That is hard. Like that can be hard and that can be scary. And that is standing at the top of a mountain and looking out and seeing nothing but fog and snow, right? Or like you said, standing at the tip of a boat and seeing no land. That is pursuing joy. And that's the held but free. I very much get that.
I think part of my issue with saying those things out loud is because they sound so selfish. And I was writing this morning. I'm trying to write every day, just a few minutes, like of just right time. And I was writing like about how do you love yourself and can you love yourself first? And what does loving yourself first look like? Because like my fear is, well, the analogy is you're on an airplane and there's an oxygen mask. And they always tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. Like I want to reach for my kids first. Like I want to make sure that their oxygen is on. And I always fear this idea that they may think that if I put mine on first, that, that's like totally worth so many hours of therapy, isn't it?
Well, I guess let me take you back.
My therapist is listening. She is gonna like charge me double.
Who told you that it wasn't okay to put yourself first?
Oh, did somebody tell you that?
Well, it could be like culturally, could be, it could be an act that you see somebody doing. I definitely don't put myself first, at all. And I think that self-love is a revolution.
What is self-love for you though?
Well, sleep. I think for me, for me, I've had, because I struggle with this, because I definitely struggle with this. For me, it's this idea of radical self-love, right? So radical self-love is boundaries, right? It's it's giving myself, I'm somebody that needs an immense amount of quiet time to process and write and think and dream. That's my self-love, is the quiet time. And I don't give myself that. And I sometimes will test myself and give myself a week where I have absolutely no quiet time, and then I crash and burn, right? And then you can test and like do a little A/B testing and see, okay, well, for me, that's my self-love, right? But the idea of radical self-love, especially as a mother, is so foreign to us. But yet, right, if you put your children's oxygen masks on first, you're going to fall, right? You're not going to have the time, right? Whereas if you do your first and then get them done, everybody will be better. And you're teaching your sons, right, what it looks like for a woman to choose herself first.
Yeah, and that's important. I was going to say the person that told me that I needed to put somebody else's oxygen mask on first was you testing yourself, Olivia, and not letting yourself. I mean, like so much. So I'm moving to Scotland, and that is very hard for me because I think of myself as my sister's caretaker, even though she does not need me to be her caretaker. And you know, I sort of, she's the older sister. And I, you know, cause I don't have kids and I don't know if I will. And, you know, I've always sort of seen myself as like partially responsible to her. And especially since her husband, you know, they broke up and he doesn't live here. So she's a really, really single mom. And it's so interesting because one of the things we talk about a lot is like, you know, I have to go pursue my joy. I have to go be with my person that I, you know, have fallen madly in love with. That it's important for her boys to see people like pursue joy and pursue love. And I think so important for men to see women doing that in the world and pursuing their joy, because it's so easy for women to take that back seat.
Oh, it's so easy. And there's so much guilt associated with it.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of guilt. I'm still working through that, you know, and how to teach it to my kids and to be okay with it myself. And, you know, it makes it really hard if they're hearing a different story.
Yep.
So, that makes it, that kind of goes back to that divorce thing, you know, like what story are they being told? Yeah. What story are they telling themselves? Do I trust them to be capable of knowing their truth, you know,
it's
what
so
they're
hard.
saying? It's so hard. But those are some of those lessons that you learn, and really in the quiet time, right? I asked my husband that question this morning, and I wrote down his answer because I wanted to think about it all day. He said, listen how smart he is, y'all. Sorry. I have such a crush on him. He says, tending to the parts of you that need nourishing. Making decisions about relationships and life that lead to happiness and not harm.
I love that. Where did you find this guy?
Yeah.
Y'all, he got referred to me.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, that's the short version. The longer version is we had lots of mutual friends, but he did, one of our mutual friends that we didn't realize were mutual, referred him to me.
That's so
if he was going to switch lawyers. I know.
That's a rom-com. You got to write that rom-com.
Right? I just, a friend of mine over the weekend told me the same thing. She was like, 800 words. I want it.
You got Reese Witherspoon vibes over there, friend. Seriously. You gotta do that. I love that. You know, and I think it all comes down to choosing to respect yourself. Right? And know that you're worthy of all of that. And that's really hard. Are you an oldest daughter?
I am a youngest.
You're the youngest. Did you feel like you had to?
Girl.
The only girl. Okay. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you, what
did you feel like you had to
like,
hold?
what are you saying?
Because what does that mean? You clearly are somebody that likes to take care of other people and to be the voice for other people. And probably you're a peacemaker, right? So did you feel like as a child you had to hold things together for everybody a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Well, between my parents, they're like disaster. They're still a disaster. Yes. I mean, but also, I mean, a peacemaker. Have y'all done your That's the second time I said y'all.
That's okay.
I embrace it. Yes, I've done my Enneagram.
I did once. I don't remember what I am, but yeah.
I have it written down because I am kind of an oldest daughter, even though I'm not exactly. And I have it in my contact card.
Nicole, while she's looking for that, what as a divorce lawyer, what did you look for in a divorce lawyer for yourself? Because I think we have a lot of people who are listening who are going through a divorce, and I'm just so curious what kind of like your top 3 things to look for in a divorce lawyer would be.
It was not what I looked for, and like if I had I picked my competitor.
That's smart.
I mean, you know, I knew who he was from a litigation perspective. When I have conflicts, I send the clients to him. Like, so that was a little easier for me. But what it did, I think, for my ex-husband was it made him assume that I was going to, you know, make it really difficult because the guy's a litigator. And that's where he resolves his cases, is in the courtroom, but he is very good at his job. And I knew that the likelihood that if I didn't make sure that he was on my side, he probably would have represented my ex-husband.
Yeah.
And that wasn't going to work either. But when I advise people on finding the right attorney, spend the money to have the consult to make sure it's somebody you jive with.
Yeah.
In my county and in the counties where my offices are, they're all paid consults. The free consults are the people that are trying to build their business, usually that don't have as much experience, but that is a market trend, right? So, I mean, that's what you're experiencing and where you live, right? As to whether they're paid for consults. But don't be afraid to meet with more than one person, because the person that you heard about, like I said, or the person that represented your neighbor, your friend, might not be the right voice for you. Second is ask them what their caseload is and set real expectations. This was one of the things that were so interesting to me. My husband my husband, right? Even I tried to stay out of his case. I didn't represent him because that would have been weird and not allowed, right? So I didn't personally represent him, but what he understood from a time frame, from a timeline of events, was so different than what really happens. And so understanding and talking to your attorney and setting real expectations. If I file this motion today, what happens between now and the time it gets heard? No attorney is probably going to be able to tell you how much it's going to cost. If they tell you specifically how much this is going to cost, you probably should run in the other direction, because they don't know who the attorney is going to be on the other side. They don't know whether, I mean, COVID's going to happen and the whole world's going to shut down. They don't know whether discovery is going to get issued, or if there's going to be some emergency in the meantime, or, oh my gosh, the judge gets sick, or you get rolled on the couch. There are all these things that you have no idea about. So making sure that you have clear expectations. And that also goes to, if I call you on a Monday, when will I get a return call? I used to tell my clients, please set a date and a time on my calendar at the same time every week, every 2 weeks, every month. We are going to talk then, because if we talk all the time, every day, your fees are going to be astronomical. And you're going to run out of money, and I can't do it for free. I'd love to do it for free, but I can't. So setting real expectations on communications and timeline. That's the second thing. The third thing is, this is going to sound insane, but just like I said, like every attorney has their favorite things to do. Like, there's a lawyer in my office. She is an unbelievable custody lawyer. I mean, one of our judges one time said, when she walks into the room, there's a halo over her head. If all she could do was take care of other people's children, manage her custody cases. She's a guardian ad litem. She's a parenting coordinator. She's a custody lawyer. She would do that every day of the week. That's where her real passion is. Does she do all the other stuff? Of course she does. But like her heart is, and her most passionate self is with the kids. So that would be the third thing.
I love those. Those are some really, really good advice. I want to type those up and share them.
I think
with
that,
everybody.
they'll be great show notes. One of the things I think watching Olivia get divorced, it felt to her like it was stretching on forever. And it felt like she could reach out to her lawyer, and like her lawyer was very good at getting back to her. But, I had to keep being like, she has multiple, this is your divorce, and it feels so personal to you because it is personal to you, but it is her job, and she has all other clients and other things in her own life. And it's so hard to remember that when you are the one that's going through it.
It's like, I think I said in the book, it's like a marathon in stilettos. Like it is so tricky and hard and painful. And you don't want to, and the other thing is like, what might feel like an emergency to you, like, oh my God, he just did this, or this just happened. You want to share it because you don't know, it's like, you don't know what to do, or does it matter? One of the things that I tell my clients, and I did myself, is I would like write the notes in, I have all these books. I'm going to show y'all. I know that your listeners can hear, but I have all these books and they're journals, and I make myself a note with a box and I keep it through the week. And the things that don't get checked off, they weren't really that important. They resolved themselves. They didn't need me. These issues didn't need me. And it wasn't something that I needed to communicate to my attorney because it resolved itself. Now, at some future event, like I want my clients to create timelines, very specific. I want to know exactly what was said. I want to know what happened, who was where. The more details, the more real it is for the client, me, and the judge. If you're going to end up in a courtroom, let me decide what I want to use. Don't keep anything out. I mean, like, if you called him a son of a bitch, I want to know that you called him a son of a bitch, and I want to know who heard it. Like, did you say that in front of your children?
Right.
Then own it. Like, you screwed up. We don't talk like that in front of kids.
Right.
Well, I mean, little kids. Or school kids or whatever.
But I think that goes back to what you were saying before. It's that relationship, right? Like, and really taking the time to find a lawyer who you're comfortable and feel safe with, and that you can tell those things to, because you have to. I always say, I felt like getting divorced, like going to the gynecologist, right? It's like you're like showing everything to everybody, and it's just really, but yet, and you're a great example of this, the end result is you found someone that you are madly in love with, and you probably feel more free than you ever have, and you have your sons, and so it is a gift, right? It's nothing to say you're sorry for. It's just a really shitty process.
It is.
But it's a fresh start, right?
It is a fresh start.
And you are older and wiser, and you've evolved, and you've learned so much about yourself.
Oh yeah.
And wow, I mean, there's something to be said for that. And I'm not, like, again, I'm a marriage, love, and divorce attorney. I put together a lot of couples, and I've told them they're not ready to get divorced. Like, this is not the option. But, knowing that, and knowing that you're the only person you can control, you can't want it more than they want it, right? Or you can't want it for them.
Right.
They have to want it for themselves too. And it takes work, but it's, if you can get to the other side and learn your own coping skills for managing the end of your old relationship, which does not mean that is not easy.
No.
But also being able to look forward and to find that peace in your new fresh start can be really rewarding.
So
yay.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
so
yay indeed.
No, it is a yay. I mean, so Nicole,
and I had in my vows, I had that held and free in my vows, by the way.
Oh, we'll tag Glennon in this.
It's funny because
held and free.
when you were saying held and free, and I know we have to go, but when you were saying held and free, I was thinking, and the thing that came to my mind was swimming on this beach with my now fiance, that I had gotten engaged on. I got engaged to my ex on that same beach. Yeah. And he and I would go swimming every day when we were in the islands. And there was one, and I wear contacts usually, and I couldn't open my eyes underwater. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to take out my contacts. Like, I have more pairs. I'm just going to take them out. And we would swim together, and I didn't have to prove to him that I could go like out into the deep water to be like cool and worthy and like, you know, a tough girl. I didn't have to do anything. I just could open my eyes underwater and I could find him and we would swim together. And that is exactly what comes to mind, is like not having to prove myself to anybody, not having to prove that I'm cool, and having being able to open my eyes and see everything. And so I think of that.
Hear yourself? You got to open your eyes
Yeah.
and see everything. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Oh my gosh, I love
it. Nicole, if anybody's going through a fresh start, what would be some wise words that you could impart to them?
You give permission to what you tolerate.
Yes,
I love that.
These are not mine, but these are ones that I remind myself. If you always do and I'm gonna butcher it a little bit, y'all. If you always do what you always did, you're always gonna get what you always got.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those two are you give permission to what you tolerate, I think of over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that goes with our kind of ethos, which is when you can change the things around you, the things around you change.
Yeah. Right? I have that one right here in the when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah. That's our fresh start mission. And then the last and most difficult question: what was the last thing that you ate and truly loved?
In Annapolis over the weekend, I had it was called a California wrap, and it was a breakfast sandwich, and it had potatoes and bacon and eggs and all these other things that I didn't put, and it was in a wrap, and it was so good. And I think the place's name was Lighthouse Kitchen, and they also, a portion of their proceeds went to the homeless, and they also had the best mimosas.
Ooh, that sounds like a perfect day. Perfect day. Well, Nicole, we are thrilled to chat with you, and we're so excited to keep in touch with you and see what you're doing. I know you probably have a lot more coming up. So, if anybody is interested, obviously you practice in North Carolina, right? So, if anybody's interested in getting in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
So I'm headquartered in North Carolina. We don't just practice in the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
We also we consult all over, but we have offices in North Carolina and South Carolina. NicoleSodoma.com is the book site. Of course, all the handles on all the social media, Twitter, Instagram, which I'm working on Instagram, you guys. This is like, I'm a Facebook generation. I'm working on this thing you call Instagram, which makes me sound so old. Instagram, it's Nicole Sodoma, and would love to hear from your listeners and hear their stories, and happy to help any way I can.
We love that. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Well, Nicole, thank you for being here and being honest and having an awesome conversation with us today.
Thank you for listening to today's story. We're always here, and we're so proud of you.
A Fresh Story is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to begin again. You can read the show notes and learn more about today's episode at afreshstory.com.